What is up, rebel colonists and Mars citizens? I am just a simple new type, and in this episode, we're concluding part 1 of the first arc of Frozen Teardrop, Rondo of Redemption. Last time, Trace and Vaughnt's mother became unwell after hearing of the death of Hiro and Ain's Yui. Trace decided to join the military, and he and his team of child soldiers proved that mobile suits are a valid military strategy. This time, mobile suit production increases. Rebels and workers take over the mobile suit factory on the moon, and the rebels will go against 2 mobile fortresses while Trace and the Specials head to the moon. So let's get into this. AC 186, Spring. The use of mobile suits grew swiftly. Soon, mobile suit battles were taking place across the world. Demand for mobile suits made the Rockefeller Foundation a lot of money. The military-industrial complex grew to new levels. In this universe, it should be called a Rockefeller complex. On the moon is the factory pumping out Leos, Ares, and Tragos mobile suits. Meanwhile, navies are demanding aquatic mobile suits, which will become Pisces, while space forces are demanding something that will eventually become the Chimera Leo. However, many rebels have been stealing and siphoning off many of the Alliance mobile suits. Because of this, the Marius factory is constantly playing a game of catch-up on mobile suit production. The factory on the moon expanded to accommodate their production needs. Trace was the one who laid the groundwork, but it was Vaughnt who revolutionized operations. This involved aggressive automation practices. He also reduced full-time work and created an around-the-clock shift system. Vaughnt became vice director and acting representative of the Foundation. He also went after the aristocracy and took down massive swaths of corruption. This put their father in a position of being the one that old aristocrats would plead to. Of course, Vaughnt the Reformer can't be stopped. Under Kushinaga would soon find himself in the L1 cluster of colonies, just like his abandoned wife, Angelina. He then set his sights on Alliance forces' doorsteps. Vaughnt replaced the supreme commander of the Alliance forces with Field Marshal Kilius Catalonia. This allowed Oz to gain complete autonomy. They could function at their own discretion. The child soldiers we talked about last episode actually has a name. They are referred to as the Specials. Even though on paper Kilius controls the Specials, it is Trace who runs the show. Conflict and insurgencies are now handled with masterful efficiency. He continues being a mobile suit instructor at Lake Victoria, inspiring new cadets. There were 2 pillars on his philosophy: act on your own judgment, for the soldiers who follow. I don't get that last one. Future instructors like Noin will take this to heart. AC 186, Summer. Trace's discipline doesn't involve regimented training. He is all about accumulating knowledge from military history, theoretical frameworks, and battle analysis. Even with mobile suits, it is important to understand the fundamental principles of past warfare. His tactics were demonstrated during the first Lunar Wars. This was a conflict among the laborers at Marius plant. The workers were pushed to a breaking point. Interestingly, the 1/6 gravity of the moon caused people to not have to sleep as much after acclimating. This caused levels of depression. Management most certainly took advantage of this with more work. This grew and grew, so the factory decided to turn to the Alliance to handle the situation. They responded with 3 chimeras. The Leo Type 2, aka the Chimera, is a prototype Leo used by Alliance space forces along with Rebel forces. There's no visual or fan art of this mobile suit, but many of the prototype Leos we see look somewhere in between a Leo and a tall geese. We know the new Chimera is just an updated Chimera, so we can assume it looks similar. Some of the workers stole the newly constructed new Chimeras, aka the Leo Type 3. The workers ended up defeating the military mobile suits sent to quell the rebellion. Certainly, these new models played a vital role in their win. Marius plant fell under worker control. This inspired rebellions within the L1 and L2 cluster of colonies. Because the factory was able to roll out 10 mobile suits a week, they were able to amass an army that rivals the Lunar Space Forces in just 2 months. Over time, many terrorists and former Alliance members became commanders of rebellion mobile suit forces. They also created the Tragos 2 and the battle fortress Sagittarius and Centaurus. The Tragos 2 is simply an upgraded Tragos. The Centaurus and Sagittarius are 300 meters in length. Weapons include 25 260mm gun turrets, 2 1300mm beam cannons, and 100 twin machine guns. These 2 fortresses can take on 100 mobile suits. Lydell Hart is the one in charge of the fortress, and is one of the few people who still believe in the big gun philosophy in an age of mobile suits. This is starting to change. Lydell Hart wanted even more battleships. He decided to hire Mike Howard to create a new ship that he would call the Peace Million. It would in fact do the opposite of peace. This wouldn't be achieved until AC-192. Lydell Hart unfortunately didn't live to see the ship, and we know that Milliardo Peacecraft will go on to command the ship with Mike Howard. Vaughn is talking to General Venti and General Lydell Hart about reclaiming the Marius plant. He wants to dispatch the specials and have Lydell Hart halt his attack for now. A General Noventa steps in and says that the enemies will grow strong in the meantime. It will take Trace and his team 7 days to make it to the moon. This gives them time to make 100 new chimeras. Waiting doesn't seem to be an option. There is one thing that they are hiding at Marius plant. Underground, they are working on developing neo-titanium along with what will become Gundanium. This will revolutionize the next generation of mobile suits. Killius says that he will allow Lydell Hart to engage, but he can't use his 2 fortresses. Everyone protests this decision. This is when a young Septim interjects. He says they could use the fortress to buy time for the specials. They need to think about the fact that Lydell Hart might defect at any moment, and they need to keep people on their side. Vaughn and Killius agree, but they can't use the giant megaparticle cannons. They move into action for the operation. This compromise by Vaughn would be a huge mistake for him. Trace and his team gets word that they are heading to the moon. His team is using the new Leo Type 4, aka the Griefs, which is German for Griffin. He departs Earth with 25 Griefs and 24 elite cadets. Zex, Noin, Izumi, Solak, and Elv are now leaders to other cadets. Artemis Sedici is a former Anti-Alliance Forces member and is in command at Marius plant. She happens to be a mother of Colonel Sedici, who will become a White Fang member in AC-195. They will be dividing their 100 chimeras into 8 units of 10 each, along with 4 strike teams of 5 units. Each team will create a star-like pattern for defenses. Meanwhile, Lydell uses a V-shaped formation. Flying V! In terms of raw power, the Alliance gets the upper hand. This war of attrition will most likely give the win to the Alliance. Artemis knows that the Alliance isn't firing their beam cannons. That is when Lydell says screw this and decides to fire those cannons. The Marius plant goes down swiftly. The rebels proceed to phase 2. This involves each formation encircling the Alliance forces as they no longer have to focus on the plant. The beam cannon attacks didn't hit any rebel mobile suits, even though it took out the factory. The Alliance forces are now dispersed, and they aren't communicating. The Sagittarius and Centaurus accidentally squishes some of their own mobile suits. Whoops. It has 300 seconds before they can fire the main cannons again. The Alliance and Rebel forces dwindle at an even rate until Artemis infiltrates the Sagittarius Bridge. The battle ends after 24 hours of non-stop combat. Lydell Hart surrenders. The fortress is now in the hands of the rebels, and they use it as a new POW camp. Prussian general and military theorist Karl von Clausewitz states that victory allows the winner to impose their vision of the world, whether through subjugation or forced peace. The workers don't think they need further conflict, but the anti-alliance terrorists want to continue their campaign. This led to a divide between the rebels. This is a benefit to Trace, who is on their way to the moon. Trace arrives at a spaceport at the L1 colony cluster. Here, there aren't too many civilians, with exceptions of people fleeing the lunar plant. One of these civilian families has a 6-year-old boy. Also leaving the shuttle is a man wearing his hat, hiding his face. Trace had no idea that this man is Odin Lowe, the man who killed Ainz and Hiroyui. Odin is a freelance operative. He glances at Trace, who says he looks like Hiro and Ainz. He bumps into the little kid on accident. The kid's mother apologizes. This moment makes Trace think of his mother. He doesn't have time to visit her while he is here. MC-0022, Princess Aurora, aka Hiroyui, is on the verge of awakening. Kathy Post says that his face looks identical to the boy that Trace and Odin just interacted with. His pod opens. Hiro awakens and is welcomed by his old friends Duo and Master Chang. And that will conclude Volume 1 of Rondo of Redemption, the first arc of Gundam Wing Frozen Teardrop. We have seen that the colonies have been struggling and fighting against Oz, but much of that wasn't explained in Gundam Wing proper. The fleshing out of the rebellions is probably the best part about this novel so far. Next time we will start Volume 2 as we continue reading into the Trace files. The specials attack the rebels on the moon, and Odin trains a young boy to be a murderer. But that will do it for now, new types. Remember, never underestimate rebels who have the ability to make their own mobile suits. Peace.